Great. We'll wait just one more minute here, and then we'll start opening bids.
Are you gonna take one too, or no?
You want me to?
Yeah.
Once I get through the first. So I can.
All right, we got 2:00, so we're gonna go ahead and start the bid opening, on behalf of Kentwood Public Schools, Tower Picture, and OAK. We appreciate everyone's interest in the project and submitting a bid. I'm Matt Holzett, the project manager. I'm gonna be reading the bids off today. We do have a few project alternates. And then at the end, we will try to get a bid tab out as soon as we can. It will most likely be tomorrow morning. And we do have post bids set up via Zoom for next Monday and Tuesday, so we will follow up with that. If you have any questions throughout the process, feel free to reach out to me after the bid opening via a phone call or email. So we'll start off. First bid category, earthwork, Excel excavation for a base bid of $694,750. They've acknowledged the addendums. And no pricing for the project alternates. And they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Dean's Landscaping and Excavation for a base bid of $843,420. They have acknowledged the addendums. No alternate pricing. And they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Fisher Item Excavating for a base bid of $1,316,200. They've acknowledged the addendum. No project alternates. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Oatman Excavating for a base bid of $766,242. They've acknowledged the addendum. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Site Work Solutions for a base bid of $873,325. They've acknowledged the addendum. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Cripps Fontaine Excavating for a base bid of $1,093,825. They've acknowledged the addendum, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 2, asphalt pavements. Michigan Paving Materials for a base bid of $161,686. They've acknowledged the addendum, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Okay. Next bidder is A1 Asphalt for a base bid of $178,500. They did not submit on OAK's bid form. That is the base bid. Next bidder, Superior Asphalt for a base bid of $236,000. They've acknowledged the addendum. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Light Load Services for a base bid of $173,590. They've acknowledged the addendum. No project alternates. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Reith Riley for a base bid of $190,300. They've acknowledged the addendum. No project alternates. They've endorsed the schedule with a few notes. Next bid category, 3, landscaping. First bidder, Landscape Design Services. Base bid, $42,400. They've acknowledged the addendum. no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder in landscaping, Twin Lakes Nursery, base bid $26,990. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Horax Nursery and Farms, for a base bid of $30,000. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Integrity Landscape Management, base bid of $42,250. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've got a qualification, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, ProCare Landscaping, for $46,275. They did not acknowledge the addenda, no project alternates. They did not acknowledge the schedule. Next bid category, 4, fencing. American Fence and Supply for a base bid of $163,130. They've acknowledged the addendum, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Straight Line Fence, base bid $115,932. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Fence Consultants of West Michigan, base bid $111,556. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 5, concrete. First bidder, Cannon Concrete Construction, for a base bid of $330,000. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Proline Concrete Construction, for a base bid of $389,020. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Burgess Concrete Construction, for a base bid of $366,075. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Shepherd's Concrete, for a base bid of $353,270. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Early and Associates, with a base bid of $471,200. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next contractor, RLE Concrete, for a base bid of $325,600. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Choice Concrete Construction, for a base bid of $322,890. They've acknowledged the addenda. They have noted no project alternates. They've got voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 6, concrete polishing. AK Concrete Staining, for a base bid of $104,853. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Burgess Concrete Construction, for a base bid of $78,130. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Early and Associates, for a base bid of $91,100. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 7, masonry. First bidder, Integrated Exteriors, base bid $837,700. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 is $101,550. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is JK Masonry, a base bid of $849,780. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 is $107,050. and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder for grade masonry for a base bid of $876,376. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number one, $70,051, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, number 8, metals, Bennett Steel, a base bid of $537,720. They've acknowledged the addenda. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, custom steel fabricators for a base bid of $466,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Van Dalen Steel for a base bid of $376,600. They've acknowledged the addenda. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, FCC, base bid $376,500. They've endorsed or acknowledged the addenda. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, number 9, general trades, JKB Construction, a base bid of $465,820. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1, $42,475. That's $42,475. They do note some voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Mugen Construction, base bid $464,960. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 pricing $40,587, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Vander Cody Construction, base bid $447,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 is $40,600. They do have voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Nugent Builders, base bid $468,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1, $29,260, and they've acknowledged the schedule. Next bidder, Triangle Constructors, base bid $484,850. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1, a price of $34,000, and they've acknowledged the schedule. Next bidder, D&D Building, base bid of $487,150. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 pricing $29,000, and they've acknowledged the schedule. Next bid category, number 10, metal wall panels. First bidder, TFC Canopy, Division of Centurion Industries, base bid of $249,218. They've acknowledged the addenda, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Paramount Sheet Metal, for a base bid of $216,160. They have acknowledged the addenda. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Metal Tech Building Specialties, base bid $265,990. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Wolverine Enclosures, for a base bid of $262,900. They've acknowledged the addenda. They have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Midwest Wall, base bid $223,000. They've acknowledged the addenda, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Reliable Sheet Metal, for a base bid of $224,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. They They've got voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Versatile Roofing Systems, for a base bid of $283,775. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've got voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 11, roofing. First bidder, Advanced Construction Group, for a base bid of $774,803. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've acknowledged the schedule. Next bidder, Arrow Roofing and Supply, for a base bid of $327,494. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've got some clarifications and voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Division 7 Building, for a base bid of $331,300. They've acknowledged the addenda. And no project alternates, they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Versatile Roofing Systems, base bid $345,850. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they have endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 12, joint sealants. Slager Restoration and Sealants, for a base bid of $13,345. They've acknowledged the addenda, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Premier Coffee, for a base bid of $11,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 is an add of $500, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is CJ's Coatings and Sealants, for a base bid of $9,314. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 is $614. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 13, doors, frames, and hardware. First bidder, Architectural Openings and Access. Base bid, $34,275. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, SAR Building Supplies, for a base bid of $61,182. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Automatic Equipment Sales and Service, base bid $59,460. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 14, aluminum glass and glazing. First bidder, Foreman Glass, base bid $346,651. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1, $140,643. They do have a voluntary alternate. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Grand Valley Glass, base bid $276,895. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1, price of $137,660. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Boss Glass, with a base bid of $248,500. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1 is $124,000, and they have endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 15, LPDA. First bidder, Phoenix Interiors, with a base bid of $134,900. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2 is $18,225 with clarifications. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Ritson Associates, for a base bid of $146,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2, $28,600. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Shepherd's Brothers, for a base bid of $135,405. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2 pricing is $3,190, and they've acknowledged the schedule. Next bid category, 16 flooring, East Point Interiors, base bid $66,575. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have clarifications, and they have acknowledged the schedule. Next bidder, River City Flooring, base bid $67,200. They've acknowledged the addenda, no project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Richmond Associates, base bid $59,485. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Sobe Company, base bid $67,660. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have a clarification, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Phoenix Interiors, base bid $67,396. They've acknowledged the addenda, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, number 17, wood flooring. This is bid as a voluntary alternate from Foster Specialty Floors. The price is $84,620. And they have endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Star Flooring for a base bid of $115,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. They have some voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Coons Specialty Flooring, base bid $89,200. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've got some voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Floor Care Concepts, with a base bid of $93,594. They've acknowledged the addenda, and they've got a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 18, painting. H&H Painting Company with a base bid of $128,911. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've got a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Eckhoff and DeVries for a base bid of $174,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. Price for alternate number 1, $2,000, and they've endorsed the schedule. Halligan Painting for a base bid of $47,200. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 1, price of $4,100, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Bork Brothers for a base bid of $69,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, number 19, playground equipment, Sinclair Recreational. Base bid $557,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have a clarification, and they have endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 20, food service equipment. Bidder, merchandise equipment for a base bid of $445,366. They've acknowledged the addenda. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Great Lakes West for a base bid of $440,260. They've acknowledged the addenda, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Stafford Smith for a base bid of $441,987. They've acknowledged the addenda. No project alternates, and endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 21, fire protection. First bidder, total fire protection, base bid $89,582. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've got a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Triad Fire Suppression, base bid $92,305. They've acknowledged the addenda. They do have some voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Brigade Fire Protection, base bid $77,600. They've acknowledged the addenda. They've got a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 22, DDC Controls, Grand Valley Automation for a base bid of $223,470. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate 4 is $250,251. They have endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, 23, mechanical plumbing. First bidder, Van Dyken Mechanical, base bid $1,544,400. They've acknowledged the addendum. Alternate number 3 is a deduct of $26,000. Alternate 4 is an add of $21,000. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, River City Mechanical, base bid $1,704,000. They have acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 3 is a deduct of $32,900. Alternate number 4 is an add of $22,000, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, A&B Mechanical Contractors, base bid $1,638,400. They've acknowledged the addendum. Alternate number 3 is a deduct of $22,745. Alternate number 4 is an add of $40,400, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Advantage Mechanical Refrigeration, base bid $1,545,700. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 3 is a deduct of $29,000. Alternate number 4 is an add of $25,633. And they have a voluntary alternate. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Northwest Kent Mechanical for a base bid of $1,577,900. They've acknowledged the addendum. Alternate number 3 is a deduct of $37,000. Alternate number 4 is an add of $22,000. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category 25, commissioning. First bidder, Functional Consulting Services, base bid $6,490. They've acknowledged the addendum. Alternate number 4 is a price of $2,875, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is FISECX, base bid $9,300. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 4 is an add of $5,300. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bid category, electrical. First bidder, Lumen Electric, for a base bid of $860,320. They've acknowledged the addendum. Alternate number 2 is $15,536. They do have a voluntary alternate, and they did not note the schedule. Next bidder, Parkway Electric and Communications, base bid $748,900. They've acknowledged the addendum. No project alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Bice Electric, for a base bid of $999,400. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2, a price of $10,913, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Circuit Electric, base bid $748,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2 is $1,200. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Excel Electric, for a base bid of $733,000. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2 is a price of $3,500. They've noted some voluntary alternates, and they've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder is Allied Electric, base bid $740,600. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2 is $3,000. They've endorsed the schedule. Next bidder, Van Haren Electric, for a base bid of $764,900. They've acknowledged the addenda. Alternate number 2 is a price of $10,000, and they've endorsed the schedule. I believe that's it. Thank you all for those that stuck along here. We're gonna sort through this, try to get a bid tab out as soon as possible, and I'll be reaching out with post bids. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.